Premier Media's Mining Weekly is speaking to Gerhard Meintjes, the founder, owner and managing director of PGM Management, a company which focuses on exploration and which has a particularly intense focus in the Namaqua metamorphic province. So Gerhard, can you tell us about what you focus on and then how we can boost this industry for the benefit of the South African people?
A bit of background. I mean, I'm a private explorer. I started a consulting company in the late 90s when the big change in the mining industry came about. And the aim was to be a junior explorer and really get into exploration itself rather than doing consulting work, which eventually happened. And I'm especially focusing on early stage projects that's at a very early level of drill and exploration information. I think that's where there's a lot of value in projects. The last 10 years was quite slow. If one take a step back and look where we were and where we are now, the mineral rights and the mining and exploration industry was very tightly controlled by a few major companies for many, many decades until the new Mineral Act came about. There was very little scope for exploration companies and small mining companies to participate before that unshackling that happened in the early 2000s. And subsequently, there was a period where we saw a lot of activity, but most of that was on low-hanging fruit. That was very advanced projects and wasn't that difficult to take further and get to value. And we reach a stage now, I think, where most of the easy projects is long gone. And we haven't done real grassroots or early stage exploration for a long time. The major companies did do grassroots and early exploration in the days of the pre 2000s, but their focus was very different. Their aim was different. They had certain targets for that's pretty large scale. I worked for a company in gold exploration, and the minimum target was 3 million ounces. If a project or a prospect or a target didn't have that potential, you walk away from it. I think it's mainly based on Witwatersrand gold deposit kind of insights or needs that the 3 million ounces was based on. But if you, even at that stage, most of the world gold production was on deposits that's less than 500,000 ounces, open cast, quick and easy, and typically once it gets going, you find more extensions of the deposits, and decades later the area is still being mined. And I don't think we've had that kind of thinking or a lot of that activity for a long time in South Africa. So we need to take a step back and get back to real exploration. The knowledge and the tools we have nowadays have drastically changed since the last major drive on, for instance, base metals exploration in the 70s, 80s maybe. And we need to relook at this country. There's tremendous potential. It is still elephant country. You probably won't find a Witwatersrand deposit or a Bushveld complex, but we've got a lot of potential on other deposits that could be relatively shallow and easy, cheap and easy to develop. When the change of the MRPDA came about, at last, juniors and small companies could participate in the mineral exploration industry in South Africa. The Northern Cape focus came about in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, when we, in a consulting company that I had a look at different targets and potential in South Africa, and one of the old discoveries of the 1970s that was at that stage fallow was open, which is a nickel occurrence in the Northern Cape. And through that, one started to get more and more insight of the potential of the area. The last major activities in the area was in the 70s and afterwards, but the metal prices were very depressed. South Africa was changing. And there's been a long period where there was little attention to the Northern Cape. We've seen a lot of recent activities that could focus on it, especially by Orion Minerals. They entered into a joint venture on my project. And I think there's a lot of insight now of the potential of, for instance, the Namaqua mobile metamorphic province of the Northern Cape. And it's amazing what potential the area holds. The main focus at this stage is on copper deposits, and that also carries significant zinc. Some also carry lead, but there's a host of other occurrences and known deposits that extend that. I mean, there's added factor of gold to some of these deposits. And then, of course, the nickel deposits are fairly unknown and hasn't seen much attention, but there's a very good potential for nickel deposits. And these are nickel sulfide deposits, which then also carry copper and carry golds and platinum group metals, and of course a host of other metals that you could possibly recover from that. Northern Cape's also rich in other metals, which is becoming more important, rare earths, lithium deposits, etc. So the whole geology of the area, I think, has opened up, and the understanding and insight of the geology has changed dramatically in the last 20 years.
And if we went in there and had some investment, would we have to do a lot of drilling still to firm everything up, or is there new technology that can give you tremendous insight early?
Martin, we've seen some transactions fairly recently. For instance, Orion Minerals that took up the old Copperton, or better known as actually the Prisco mine, which is, of course, a defunct mine that wasn't mined out. It was just stopped with a lot of resources left and very good potential for extensions. Some of it well known, but not at an advanced exploration stage. And then, of course, also the traditional copper district has also seen transactions now. It's the same there. There's still a lot of potential. A lot of the deposits are not mined out at all. There's still a lot of ore left, and with the newer geophysical technology we have available, there is a lot of potential for new discoveries in the area. Apart from that, there are dozens and dozens of other mineral occurrences and projects that seen a few drill holes in the 70s and has not advanced further. But if you look at the geology and the available data on those prospects, it doesn't. It's the same as what we see at Copperton. The same as some of the other areas, and it's certainly got a lot of potential. Yes, you still have to do a lot of exploration, geophysics and drilling, but I think that's where the potential lies. It's not advanced projects. It's relatively low cost to take it to some level of surety and value and advance it from there then further.
And what do you think the state should do, the government should do to try and encourage now? They've got an exploration strategy coming up. We don't want this to just be something on paper. We want the implementation, and the policy around it is very, very important. What would really stimulate us? What do you see in other jurisdictions that get people going into exploration?
Yes, Martin, I think the others might have highlighted the obstacles one have in applications, and it's taking a long time. It's relatively costly for juniors and private companies to get exploration right applications submitted. Then the time period, a lot of it actually take a very long time before it comes through the system. There was a period in the mid-2000s, late 2000s, where I actually had very great relations with some of most of the DMR offices, and had very quick turnaround on applications. But I think that administration has largely gone awry now, and that needs to be addressed. Of course, the cadastral, I know the person that was tasked with implementing and designing and implementing the cadastral the portal we have, and he complained, his complaint at this stage was he's got absolute minimal budget and time to actually do it. It's not the way to do it. So we really need to address that. I mean, our neighboring countries have got very good systems running, and there's no reason why we shouldn't. That will enable a company or an individual to much easier target areas and decide what areas to focus on, apart from all the other reasons. And then the second factor, it's nothing new. It was the same in the so-called old days, pre-2002. The data must be available and must be diligently submitted and indexed, submitted by the companies and indexed by whoever is responsible for that. If you go back to old records, I mean, there's also very little that was actually submitted to the custodians in those years. And it's a problem that we've had for many decades, and that needs to be addressed. And it needs both players, industry and government, to actually work together on that. It's not just the one at fault. It's also been in the past. Industry as well, it's also been very lax in actually submitting all the data. For instance, geophysics, how many billions of dollars have been spent on geophysical surveys by the private industry, but that data does not flow through to the next holder of a prospecting right. I think funding is a critical factor. We've never had real funding for junior companies and for early exploration in South Africa. All the institutions that do funding for mining and mining projects and for exploration do that only at a very advanced stage. You must be very close to a mining right application for starting to construct the mine before you can get funding in South Africa. So at the end, you still have to get on a plane and go and look for funding outside South Africa, and that's a travesty. I think we can do a lot of that funding from within South Africa through our own institutions. It doesn't take a lot of funding to take a project or a prospect to a stage where we can see if it's go or no go. And there's no reason why we shouldn't fund it from in South Africa. We need to address that.
The African National Congress's Economic Transformation Committee, the ANC ETC, they have said straight out that South Africa must incentivize coming up explorers in the same way as they do in other jurisdictions, like the flow-through scheme in Canada, and that these companies must list on the JSE in the same way as these companies list in Canada. And they also list in Australia, and they list in the UK, London. So don't you think we need that underpin of a listing? And then you can get the credits through for those people who are investors, their tax credits, and we can get going on this.
Absolutely, Martin. I mean, the last 10 years or so might have been difficult to go through the listing route, but it's probably coming back now. There's a revival. Looks like there's a new bull market running for metals and mining, and so we must really work on creating an attractive environment, attractive platform for junior exploration companies to list on our stock exchange, or stock exchanges, I should say. But that will also need the investment community to really see and understand the opportunity that it brings. I think that's where the main problem is. Traditionally, we didn't invest in high-risk companies like exploration companies are, but your returns can be phenomenal if the company gets it right.
But you talk to taxi drivers in Canada, and they're taking you to a mining function, and they ask you and say, where are you going? And you say mining, and they say, no, we're also investing in mining. And you say, well, how are you investing in mining? And they say, well, we got the flow-through scheme, and we get the tax benefit, and at the end of the tax year, so we're investing. We're also investing in Africa, where you guys are. So surely big and small can be encouraged to get into this. It's worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely, Martin. During my consulting years with the company Joactive, we did a lot of work for Canadian juniors and also spent a lot of time in Canada. It was amazing. The average person on the street reads and follow a lot of the junior companies and the exploration news, and they invest a bit of their money in those shares, and they're quite aware of what's going on. Because of Canada's success, they're not only attracting their own money, they're attracting money from elsewhere in the world to be invested through the Canadian vehicles in exploration and mining. And that's what we should try and attract for not only South Africa, but for especially Southern Africa. We can attract those investments to our local stock exchange.
And if you have one word of advice to those who are now setting up an exploration strategy, which we hope will be more than a piece of paper, what would you say to them that they must have in that document?
Yeah, Martin, that could be a long discussion, but surety of tenure is very important. One must have a clear path for the foreseeable future, which should be at least 10, 15 years where there's no drastic changes in the legislation. You must understand that you will not have sudden changes in requirements to hold on to your prospecting right. Uh, and also, I would like to see a longer extension on your prospecting right. At the moment, it is too short. With of course strict control of do you deserve to actually extend it further. But I would like to see another extension of 5 years at the end of the day, if you have obviously reached certain goals. But to actually get to a mining rights, if your project is successful within the present time period, is not realistic. One can just go back and look at statistics, look at how long it takes from a discovery or even tackling an old prospect to get to full resource statement and to get a mining right in place. That takes longer than 10 years typically. It can take even longer than that. And you must make, and I as an explorer must make sure that my investment and my investors can see value at the end of the day. And that is what is a big obstacle, in my opinion, at this stage. You get a total of 5 years, and that's not enough. I would like to see another 5 years added on at the end of that 5 years. Obviously, you must have reached certain goals by the end of that first extended period. Otherwise, you have the problem that we have seen and probably will see still, that these the project rights taken out, but not much activity takes place. That happens. But one must cut that out as soon as possible so somebody else can come in. But somebody that has been doing work and has been advancing a project must get the chance to take it the full distance if he has complied to whatever we put in regulations we put in place at the end of that 5-year period.
And finally, what do you regard as your best exploration success, and why was it successful? What were the conditions?
I've had very early stage projects, and sooner or later you have to get a bigger partner in with deeper pockets. So usually end up in a joint venture. But I've had a platinum project that worked out quite well, although it then had problems after later on, which was a platinum prospect called Smoky Hills. And also the nickel project in the Northern Cape has been very slow initially, but I'm very pleased to have seen the insight and the knowledge that's been built up on the Jaco Span nickel deposits and what that means to the larger, the geology and the prospectiveness of the area on larger scale. That's been very satisfying to see that what we thought about it many years ago turned out to be correct. Early exploration is typically driven by individuals with a passion for it. And that passion must be retained in a project. A joint venture often often have to step aside in a joint venture, and that passion can easily get lost. But one must also understand, if we want to go back, and we must go back to early exploration, that's all about individuals. Large companies can fund it very well, but they seldom have the individuals that's got the passion to put real thinking and passion into it. It's often more a feeling one has for a project than one has the proof of the potential for it. And it's that passion worldwide, that is what drives exploration. That's why it often starts off with individuals and junior companies, unlisted private companies, and then build on from there. And we need to get that back into our local industry.
That was Gerhard Meintjes, the founder, owner, and managing director of PGM Management.